it being used for the state?
I'll be really happy for former Governor Ambode if he can resolve this imbroglio in time and maybe find a way to get these buses, because that is the only proof seem to have now.
Once the monies were actually spent.
That the monies were actually spent, because that is the only way he can come before the State House of Assembly and justify himself. Otherwise, the question will still hang on his neck. And this thing is not about now. It will be and my fear is that things like this may get replicated in many of these places, because Lagos is actually one of the standards of institutional governance, in Nigeria. But if these kind of things are happening in Lagos, what now becomes of governors, a state where the governors have become prebendal lords, where they allocate, the judiciates, they execute at the same time?
Let's be hopeful that there will be a conclusion that will be favorable to Lagos State. Yes. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts on the program.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Right, and thank you for staying with us. We'll go on a short break, and when we return, we'll be speaking on the plight of polytechnics, polytechnics and its plans to embark on strike. Do stay with us.
If I say today's edition is going to be cool, calm, and collected, I may be lying.
This one somehow doesn't inspire them because Shori may have his own agenda, Shori may this. I just feel, look, at the end of the day, we all know what we're suffering here.
Our youth will prefer to dance shaku shaku than to come out and vote on election day.
It may be hot, sizzling, and provocative.
Until we bear our body, that is, we wake up from our act of irresponsibility, nothing changes.
That's true, but there was also times that they were saying the icebergs were melting, but then the icebergs then they formed again.
United Nations will give free drugs to this hospital, and these doctors and nurses will take these drugs out for sale.
It's deeply personal, tragic, and frightening.
The wickedness of the elders and the idleness of the youth, yes.
Welcome to Tea Time on Plus TV Africa, where we bring you the biggest entertainment stories and, of course, analyze them for you.
You can have both parents and still end up as a useless child. I see them every day.
Most times I worry more about where I'm coming from and where I am now, and that determines my next step.
Why are you sounding like
Alibaba
now?
Plus TV Africa, we're feeling good. No time to dull, everybody feeling alright.
Make music and people are still buying. Sometimes I look myself minimal IU.
Akpala music is for mature-minded people. I got DMs sometimes from Malawi, like,
Sleeping early.
Seize it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's Tea Time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to. That money we shoot every person that we know we can shoot. We don't let people die there.
You could have killed us for a long period of time.
Is that time why I carry gonorrhea? I first go hospital first, but it no go. Now I come make that mama.
Just pulled it, pointed, and shot.
What is the soul of a man?
They suffer too much. They suffer too much.
Issues around the Nigerian police, we have to tackle it holistically.
Hear the stories making the headlines.
The Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria. I'm here at Yunus Bashorin Street where the
fire destroyed our transformer complete as well.
The lowest level you can.
Plus TV Africa, the big stories live here.
Big stories live here.
Big stories live here.
The Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics, ASUP, has threatened to withdraw their services after 21 days if the federal government fails to address some issues bedeviling the polytechnic education system in Nigeria. Some of their complaints include non-implementation of the Federal Polytechnic Act 2009 amendment and confirmed victimization of union officers. Joining me to discuss this are still my guest from the previous segment, Olalekan Adigun, political analyst. Thank you very much for joining us. And of course, we have Tammy Kalio, political commentator. Pleasure to have you join us.
Pleasure is mine.
We seem to have this thing come up over and over and over again. This time, 21 days is the ultimatum. We're just dealing with the labor ultimatum to the federal government on the minimum wage. Now this. What is your reaction?
My immediate reaction on the news is to show that the education sector in Nigeria is in crisis, serious one. ASU, we have always had a series of ASU strikes for a while. ASU, maybe because polytechnic education has not been really considered much of importance as the university education, so not much of ASU news has been in the news. Now, one of the issues that I think that is increased funding for polytechnic education, which has, in fact, polytechnic education was actually carved out because carved out to provide technical education as against what the universities provide. And don't forget, schools like Yabatech was one of the first higher institutions in Nigeria formed by the colonial administration to provide mid-level technical education in the area of engineering, the area of sciences, and
the chairman of the ASUP actually mentioned that this sector is important because they provide the manpower skill that this nation needs, and that sector should not be allowed to die. And that is why they are coming up to say 21 days ultimatum, or we embark on industrial action.
That we even have to get to this point where polytechnic lecturers will have to down tool for them to get the attention of government. It's something that we really need to examine internally as a people. Polytechnic education is not just flip side education. And if you look at the what's it called, the Polytechnic Act that you mentioned, is one of the measures introduced by the Buhari administration to try to maybe standardize in the qualification for polytechnic education with the in addition to the university system. Because how can you explain a situation where you went for an ND, national diploma, after which you stay for 1 year IT, you come back for your HND. At the end of HND, you go to NYSC just like somebody who went to university too. But you still, for many situations, if you are going to do your masters, you have to. So in many cases, you have to go through your PGD. And those are some of the issues. Even in the civil service, you don't get promoted beyond the level. If your first degree was in it, even though you later finish with a PhD. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Just because you forced the entry, it shows that you finish with HND. These are some of the serious issues. The marginalization for...
Well, we will come to some of those issues in a bit, but I want to draw Tammy's comments now on this development. Well, this is not the first time, probably not going to be the last time, but are you worried about it?
Yes, I am actually, because when you look at every developed country, you see that the educational sector is always a priority. Any country that determines to grow must invest largely into education. And I'm not trying to segment between the polytechnics and the universities, it's all education. So technically, the entire educational sector in Nigeria is largely starved. If you look at the budgetary allocations to the different sectors of the economy, you'll see that education is one of the low ones, and I'm still really surprised that that's still happening in 2019. But to be honest, the polytechnics have been neglected just as much as the universities have, because the way we're talking about it, it's almost as if maybe the universities are doing so well and the polytechnics are not doing well. No, that's not the case.
They have it worse. I think that's what he was trying to say.
But they all have it bad, all the same. So we're not just going to dwell on the polytechnics. Yes, they've given the federal government an ultimatum, and my sadness is that it always comes to this, right? That there are always agreements made, and the federal government doesn't seem to implement it fast enough until the polytechnics decide, or the academic staff union of universities decide that, okay, we're going to go on a strike. And that now pulls the attention of the federal government, and they will sit around the table and say, okay, we will meet your demands, and they will still meet it again. So this is my problem.
Why is that? Why do government always do this over and over again?
Well, the trust issue between the people and the government is a serious one. I think it dates back even to the colonial times. Now, if you look at the Nigerian state, and when I mean state, I mean the Nigerian government, there's this distrust. Anytime government makes a promise, there's this way, let's just take it on the face value, we are not, because government has repeatedly disappointed.
Why?
I'm still coming to that. Look at the 2009 ASU federal government agreement. This 2009 agreement started since 2001. There was an agreement there was another one in 2013 or 2014 or so. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Now, if you look at it, you will still come back to negotiate what you have already negotiated. And to be fair to government, government always say, oh, it was not my government, it was Obasanjo that they negotiated with you. Yar'Adua came, oh, don't worry, let's come back to the same table. I think during Jonathan too, and during Buhari too. So all these kind of things just shows the level of distrust between the government and the people. And that's why you see the unions always resort to strike. Because this word strike, I think it was used during the military for a very, very long time. Well, the military, that is the only word they understand, force. You understand? Force in 1984.
There are those that are saying that this might be a tactics by government to push it on to the next administration. Because, frankly speaking, this government has spent 4 years, and the conversation has been back, forth, and then they are in the second term. The second term is gradually creeping. Is it bulk shifting, like people are saying it is?
Yes, it is bulk shifting, like it has been for all these years, if you look at it. Because to be honest, when you see, I think the major problem with the country, with the government, is their processes are just too slow. Now, I understand what it's like to carry out a procurement process with the government. There's so much back and forth movement and too many intermediaries, too many things to check out on, too many check boxes you need to tick, and people, they lack the sufficient motivation to do their jobs on time. So I think this is the major problem that we're having in the country. You get on an agreement with people, and you don't implement it fast enough. It now looks like you're not going to implement it at all, which is what he's saying about trust. You don't trust the government enough to know that, okay, these people made a promise to us in so time. They are going to do it no matter how long it takes. No one trusts the government enough to do that. So most times, it reduces everyone's confidence level. But to me, the real problem is their speed. They're too slow in the implementation processes. It doesn't work the way it works in the private sector. When you see the private sector wants to do something, they immediately get their books right. They set out and they accomplish it. They set targets.
Because they have something to lose,
yes,
right?
They do have everything to lose.
But the government, the way it's being played out, is like nothing is being lost. Yeah. The education system seems to be falling every day, and we keep having. Why is it that we don't have this sense that our government is committed to revamping the education sector when it comes to agreements like this? Let me take that question to you.
In my opinion, if you look at the budgets, budget for education, that's still less than 10%. That's against the UNESCO standard of 26% for developing economies of your budget should go to. That shows the kind of, what can I call it now? The kind of commitments the government, the way government take the people. And in this case, Nigeria has a huge population of youth, a huge percentage population of youth. It shows that the government really doesn't really care much about the youth. That's, unlike what it allocates for other sectors. Because if education has had this bad percentage of budget over the years, it shows that even the Nigerian youths are not being taken very, very seriously, if you ask me. Now, in the case of the question you asked, this issue of incessant going back and forth, as you mentioned, yes, it's bureaucracy. Government has something to lose. Government does not have anything to lose. It's not that they know that they don't. For example, look how many major people, when I say major people now, big politicians have their children in these polytechnics to even start with. So they will have to be slow over some of these things. They will deliberately, if they want to get it done, yes, bureaucracy is there, but if they really want to get this job done, they will do it. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? But it just shows that government is not totally committed to education.
Is it possible that what you said earlier about ASUP not being treated as equal to the universities as per the degree and the certificates that comes out at the end of the day? Is it possible that is one of the reasons we keep having them come up to say the federal government is not doing what they've promised us?
Yes, I think it's possible. That could be one of the reasons, but I don't think it's the only reason. Like I said earlier, this reoccurrence that you have of the university bodies and the polytechnic bodies coming back to strike against the federal government because of lack of agreements that they've not come to, it occurs all the time, and it also happens with the universities. It's not just the polytechnic, but yes, of course, that's one of the reasons. If you're neglecting the universities that have been long established and have churned out a number of prominent Nigerians, what do you think is going to happen to the polytechnics? That's the problem. But I think that the main issues we're focusing on, or the main issues that we have, is priority. Like you said, you look at the budget and you see that it's under 10%. That is a problem. It shows that the government's priority is not in education. It shows you have a population of over 50 or 50 point something percent of the entire population are young people who are under the age of 30, and they are 30 years and below, and then you're not prioritizing education above other things. It's like having a company without your research and development unit being prioritized. It means you're not looking to grow. It means you're not looking to keep up with international best practices or standards. So I think this is the issue that people are having. This is where the lack of trust is coming from. Maybe a lot of Nigerians may not be able to look at the budget and understand it, but the universities can. The polytechnics can. These are educated people. They look at it, they see that every year the budget is small. So you don't have enough trust in the government that, okay, this small money that is allocated to the government includes part of our deals that have been struck, that, okay, yes, some benefits will be paid and all of that. So that's the problem that they're having. The government doesn't prioritize education because at the moment they seem to be looking at other things. They're looking at capital expenditure, roads, infrastructure. Meanwhile, people who actually consider, or governments that consider the future, that think about the development of their nation, which is still under a development status, would prioritize education. They would put almost 40% of their budget into education because they're thinking about ways to improve the economy, ways to solve crises, ways to solve problems, ways to better healthcare, deliver education and everything. So they're not investing into human capital.
In the past, we've had students come up to, help push arguments like this using various channels. what role is our Nigerian students? Are they playing enough role in pushing the government to do the needful when it comes to education? If you can say that in a minute, that would be great.
That was when the National Association of Nigerian Students and later the National Association of Nigerian Students and the Polytechnic counterparts they've really done well in the past. But in recent times, they've gotten involved into politics and too many things that have led to factionalization of the student movements by the political class and things like that. So the bodies have really gone into insignificance. What they just have is most likely begging bowls from the hands of politicians.
Your final thoughts on this?
My thoughts are this, right? Every nation that wishes to grow should invest into education. I really feel that the government should prioritize education. It's an emergency point of the government. It's like a bleeding point. A lot of countries are developing. They're making lots of plans for what's going to happen in the future. If you look at what Canada is doing right now, the immigration laws that allow for foreigners to come into their country provides a certain standard of people to come in. You understand? You have to be educated to a certain level. You have to pass those requisite exams for you to qualify to be a permanent resident. That is actually investing into like 150 years down the line, because along the line you're having naturalized people that are going to get married amongst themselves and have smart children who will still in turn throw back their intelligence into the country's development. So what the country ought to do as regards this is address these issues. Try and make sure it doesn't come up again. If there are debts to be paid, if there are agreements that were reached, fulfill those agreements on your own part so we don't have recurring strikes, because it's the students that actually suffer, and in turn, those students are the country, they're the future. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on the program. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
We'll go on a short break now for a Plus package, and when we return, I'll give my take. To stay with us.
The Nigerian Senate has begun to debate on the 2020 budget as presented by President Muhammadu Buhari. Lawmakers have taken turns to express their opinions and misgivings on the 10.3 trillion budget estimate expected to impact the lives of Nigerians and return the nation's budget implementation window back to January to December timeline. Lawmakers have taxed the executive on implementation, debt reduction, power, and taxation, among several issues.
We must begin to think, how do we diversify the revenue base of our society? When you talk about 256 billion being allocated to works, I have it on good authority that what is even required to take care of outstanding in the Ministry of Works and Housing is in excess of 500 billion naira. And here we have allocated 256 billion. I will be said to be huge comparative to what has been allocated to other sectors.
I think the plan to increase VAT to 7.5% is clearly an instance of regressive taxation. If you look at item C, introducing tax incentives for investments in infrastructure and capital markets, this situation, for me, of increasing VAT is a shortcut to economic recovery. It smacks of intellectual laziness, and like all shortcuts, I don't think it will drive this country in the right and proper direction.
I have some misgivings about the fundings of the budget of 2020. With a debt portfolio of 20 trillion, debt service of 2.4 trillion, higher than our capital budget of 1.18 billion. It means that we are not going to find funds to implement our capital budget. I would like to reflect on the 2019 budget, where only a paltry sum of 294.6 billion has been released for capital projects as at September 2019. As at June in 2019, our budget was already in budget expenditure for 2019 was already in deficit of 1.35 trillion. This deficit is what is delaying the implementation of the capital budget. So, given the same indices that we are using in 2019 to raise revenue in 2020, it is really worrisome if we can meet our revenue targets.
economic argument and debate is a political decision. The political will to implement the budget and, of course, budget making has to demonstrate fairness, equity, and inclusivity. For example, Mr. President, my constituents are deeply concerned about the poor showing of Plateau State in the budget over the years, and even in this one. This has been repeated in this year's budget, and it's the desire and call of my constituents that the Senate will address this imbalance and to make provision for the Akwanga Jos Bauchi Road, and equally to facilitate the completion of the Jos Yakubu Gowon Airport, Hepang.
I'm coming from the southeast of this country. I know we have so many abandoned projects in our area. One is the second Niger Bridge. It's very, very important to us because we are businessmen. We are also moving up and down. The other issue is the 9-mile Makurdi Expressway. Is very, very important to us because that's the gateway to the north, and that we take to get to Abuja and beyond. The other issue is the Akanu Ibiam International Airport. We have for over 43 days now. That airport has been closed. Mr. President, we are begging that in this year's budget, now that that place has closed, and that's the only major airport in the southeast that the federal government should allocate money, since we are not doing new projects, ensure that that airport is done for us.
Education in this country deserves more. Teachers at all levels should be treated better. Federal government should do their utmost to adjust the balance and enhance the quality of education young people receive in this country. Too much has already been said with so little done. We should just stop talking already and just do the needful. We can. I know we can. And that's our program tonight. Thanks for watching and have a lovely weekend.
I actually moved back to Nigeria to open a bakery. This was my goal, and everything I did up till this point was in preparation for this. First of all, life was great because I moved in 2015 right before the recession, right? It was awesome. I was like, wow, there's so much money out here, man. The cost of overheads, power generation, water, you have to be your own local government. And there are no tax breaks. Many places where, where they realize the small business environment is difficult would offer some kind of tax breaks and incentives. We don't do that out here. We want you to come back. We want you to, to start businesses here, but we're not going to do anything to help you. All my experiences in the past have led me ultimately to where I am now.
This TV station, Plus TV Africa, is designed to help to create a paradigm shift. The more we tell our stories, the more we learn from whatever our past mistakes have been.
We can be much more than we are. We should be doing a lot in refineries.
And we are definitely investing in our staff. We're training, we're developing, we're creating the kind of workforce that will be the envy of the international broadcast. The quality of the reportage, the quality of our presentation, the quality of our production will be obvious. We're saying that we want to reach Africans wherever they are and get the message across to them. That's what Plus TV Africa is all about.
This Medan has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
When I start hearing the shoot of gun.
Whatever I have done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
A lot of the jobs that exist today will not exist in the next 10 years.
When I see people today shouting, we're not too young to run, we are ready to run. Ready to run to where?
The people of excellence are, to a certain extent, being held ransom by idiots and bandits.
Once you are in government, you believe everything you do is right. And once you are in opposition, everything the government does is wrong.
And so it's time for us to take over power.
Hey, what's up, guys? You're welcome to another edition of Plus Event, and I remain your host, Ifeoluwa Oshuke.
Your absence isn't an excuse anymore, as Plus Events is all you need, as we bring you the glitz, the glamour, and loads of fun.
Oh, definitely, by no question. He's a living legend. Oh, God forbid, Holy Ghost fire, I know.
I just want to be blown away. I want to be wild. This is 11 years of doing it.
I'm surrounded by so much positivity.
No, it's okay.
Yo, what's up, my people? It's your boy Starboy Terry. You're watching
Plus Event on Plus TV.
Stay glued to Plus TV Africa every Saturday and Sunday, 4:30 p.m. West African time.
for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bukky November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize. What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
He suffered equally confessed.
Now 500 naira they collect them.
If you no talk, they go beat you.
Now 2,500 they pay.
On Plus TV African News at this hour. On the day of the International Girl Child, First Lady Aisha Buhari calls for urgent action to protect girl child against abusers. A cargo plane with presidential staff on board crashed in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And on the foreign scene, U.S. appeal court upholds subpoena for Donald Trump's financial records. Many thanks for joining us on News of the Hour on Plus TV Africa. The First Lady, Aisha Buhari, has called for urgent action to protect the girl child from abusers. Buhari, in a tweet on Friday to commemorate the International Day of the Girl Child in Abuja, stressed the need for parents to protect their children from all forms of violence and abuse. The theme for the 2019 celebration is Girl Force, Unscripted and Unstoppable. The day's celebration supports more opportunity for girls and increases awareness of gender inequality faced by girls worldwide based upon their gender. The celebration of the day also reflects the successful emergence of girls and young women as a distinct cohort in development policy, programming, campaigning, and research. Girls in Adamawa State have urged the state governor's wife, Lami Fintiri, to sponsor an early marriage prohibition bill to stop parents from marrying out their young daughters. The girls made the call on Friday in a communique they presented to the governor's wife after a rally to mark this year's United Nations International Day of the Girl. Reading the letter on behalf of the girls at Government House Yola, Fatima Ismaila said the bill became necessary for the girls to have equal opportunity to acquire education. They also seek protection against rape and other forms of child abuse in the state. The governor's wife was represented by the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Women and Social Development, Justina Patrick, who assured the girls of the administration's commitment to education, particularly that of the girl child. She urged for the review of some cultures that suppressed women from contributing more effectively in building the society, adding that the society must speak loud against rape and other violence against women and other vulnerable people in the society. The Adamawa UNICEF education consultant, Jo Junkun, lauded Adamawa government for its collaboration with the fund in various sectors, particularly in education. The federal government on Friday said it had embarked on a policy to subsidize the cost of menstrual pads and commence free distribution for schoolgirls in the country. The government also called on companies that produce sanitary pads to key into the gesture as part of their corporate social responsibility through contributions, price reduction and availability. The Director General, National Center for Women Development, a parastatal of the Ministry of Women Affairs, Mary Ekbereta, stated these during a press briefing held in Abuja in commemoration of the 2019 International Day of the Girl Child with the theme Girl Force, Unscripted, Unstoppable, Empowering Girls for a Brighter Tomorrow. She said the NCWD was in talks with sanitary pad producing companies towards ensuring that the price of pad is subsidized. The International Day of the Girl Child. Away from that,
good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And it's good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Such a unique name you've got.
Yeah, that's what happens when someone is a girl.
Right.
Because them being a girl is unique in itself.
Good. So we'll start from that point. You know, when we talk about the International Day of the Girl Child, most times the temptation is to, you know, begin from the point of, oh, they're relegated to the background, they are not treated fairly and all of that. But let's start from the positive. Tell me, what are the blessings of even being a girl child?
You know, growing up, my daddy used to say that being a girl child is more money for him. You know, having girls, out of 4 children, we're about 3 girls. And having 3 girls is more blessings for him, is more money for him, you know, in terms of the marriage bride price and all of that.
But he isn't intending that he's selling off his daughters.
Of course, though he says that jokingly, it just shows how much he appreciates his girl children. And then my daddy said something while I was growing up that I will never forget. He said, it's just that people don't understand the benefit of having girls as children. Why? Because they get to promote the family name even early and easier. And what did he mean by that? Meaning that as a girl child, before you know it, you are out there before the male counterpart, and then you are promoting the family name, and that's it. It's compared to the boy child, you know, when a girl child is successful, she brings out the family name and all of that. So there are a lot of blessings attached to being a girl child. We could see a lot of females, women in every sector doing amazing work. You know, till date we still talk about the legacy of Dora Aquili. And then you know that we say when females are empowered, they do things differently. Why? Because they have to work twice as much to prove their worth. So, and of course, you know, there is this adage that also say when you train a girl child, you just train the nation. And if you look all over around us, you see females doing amazing things. You see females on the farm, even when you go to the villages, you see females, you know, you're a news presenter, you're a female. And of course, you're doing an amazing job like that. And because of the way females are wired, we tend to address issues from the emotional aspect of it. And now we see females more logical, and then they bring up innovative solutions, even in the tech world. And then there are a lot of advantages to being a girl child, you know, that we cannot overestimate or over-talk about.
Okay, so that in fact brings me to my second question, which is, what's the potential, you know, available for the girl child, especially in Nigeria?
So thank God that the whole world is not saying that it is important we train the girl child and allow the girl child to prosper. Let me use that word. And then, you know, there are a lot of programs that are running, even in the tech world. You know, you can see programs like Girls Can Code. You know, you can see programs like, oh, let's empower girls. Girls can have access to reproductive health services without anybody's permission. You know, like 25 years ago when they launched the first International Day of the Girl Child. You know, we can see that a lot of programs are around girl child being empowered so that they can make independent decisions, and just that so that we can bridge the gap of inequality between the older gender and the female gender.
All right, so we have 94.2 million girls making up the population of Nigeria, which you know is about 200 million. Some people say it's 201 already. Well, that's a big number. Now, with this number making up the population of Nigeria, we still have huge challenges. For you, what would you say are the challenges that the girl child faces every day in our society?
So, well, it's saddening that we still talk about these challenges year in, year out. We could see that the rates of teenage pregnancy, abortion is on the high increase. You know, recent statistics says that about 70% of teenage death is as a result of pregnancy-related issues. You know, we can still see female genital mutilation as Nigeria topping the whole world has the highest prevalence of about 47% in the whole world still. And then we can still see that even cancer issues, you know, breast cancer, Nigeria is still one of the countries in Africa that still have all of these issues. And then other issues like child marriage, you know, the northern Nigeria is still recording a high rate of child marriage. And I think it's still these issues that, and then even in the place of work, we can see that females are, you know, the intimidation, let me say guys are getting intimidated by the rate at which females are entering male-dominated sectors. And then we can even see in schools, you know, recently the BBC video shows that females are at a very disadvantage even to get their certificates in school. You know, they have to go through harassment, sexual violence, and of course we hear it every day, the rates of sexual violence. Even though, yes, there has been a lot of improvement, at least the government is responding quickly compared to what we used to have. You know, they are tending to believe that these issues exist, and there are a lot of programs that are being run to ensure that we mitigate all of these issues and challenges. But of course, we've not gotten to where we want to be, but we are not where we used to be in terms of the girl child.
We're not where we used to be. Now, finally, I know that you're an expert, adolescent sexual reproduction expert. Tell us about that. What's that?
Okay, so I work for the Johns Hopkins Center for Communication Programs on the Nigerian Urban Reproductive Health Initiative as a youth program officer, and basically what we do is we currently have this life planning for adolescent and youth project that we're implementing in Lagos State, and I happen to be the one leading the project here in Lagos. And basically what we are doing is we are empowering girls to be able to make decisions about their reproductive health in terms of sexual family planning, using contraceptive, you know, is one thing for them to know, is another thing for them to use. And then that's where the issue of life skills comes in, you know. We've realized that if girls have that self-esteem, they can demand for these services that they need. And then we are also bridging the knowledge gap, because you need to know what you want before you even ask for it. So that's part of the things we are doing in Lagos State to support Lagos State to ensure that more young people have access to sexual and reproductive health services in terms of contraceptive use. And of course, these services are available at primary health care centers in Lagos, and also through the adolescent and youth-friendly health services facilities around Lagos, about 6 to 7 of them now are in Lagos. So yeah, that's what we are doing. We are ensuring that girls have that self-efficacy to access the reproductive health services they want to. You know, as a girl, you should be able to walk into a pharmacist and ask for condom. You know, it's easier for a boy to do that than for a girl to do that, because of the cultural context and sensitivity of our society, which believes that it's okay for a guy to have sex, but you know, as a girl, you have to be pure, so to say. But really, it takes two persons to make a female pregnant, and all of that. So it's just about the time that females become very selfish with their reproductive health. Anyway, at the end of the day, it's your body. You are the one that is going to get pregnant and not get to go to school and all of that. But after all, it's all about that young girl reaching her life aspirations and fulfilling her dreams and achievements.
Thank you so very much. Bless me, Ajani. I like the way you put it. We are not where we used to be, but we are headed somewhere. Many thanks for joining.
That was a conversation earlier in our news on empowering the girl child in Nigeria. The Court of Appeal in Abuja has affirmed the August 23, 2019 judgment of the Election Tribunal, which voided the election of Dino Melaye of the People's Democratic Party as Senator for Kogi West Senatorial District. The court, in a judgment read earlier today, ordered the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to conduct fresh election in some parts of the senatorial district within 90 days. The appeal court noted that there were discrepancies in the dates contained on the result sheets produced by INEC for the election held on February 23 in the senatorial district. The Justice A.O. Chijioke-led Kogi State National Assembly State Assembly Election Tribunal had in its August 23, 2019 judgment voided Melaye's election, upheld the petition of Smart Adeyemi of the All Progressive Congress, and ordered fresh election in some parts of the Kogi West Senatorial District. Dino Melaye, Senator of the People's Democratic Party, has reacted to his loss at the Court of Appeal in his bid to overturn the judgment which sacked him as lawmaker representing Kogi West Senatorial District. Shortly after the appeal court upheld the ruling of the Kogi State National Assembly Election Petitions Tribunal, which nullified his election, the senator said he believes in God's judgment. Earlier on Friday in Abuja, a three-man panel of justices of the appeal court, led by Justice Dati Yahaya, dismissed Senator Melaye's application challenging the judgment of the tribunal. In a unanimous judgment, the court held that he could not prove the allegations that he was not given a fair hearing by the tribunal. It therefore upheld the majority judgment of the tribunal that the petitioner, Senator Smart Adeyemi, proved the allegations of malpractices, mutilation of result sheet, and overvoting. The court also ordered the Independent National Electoral Commission to conduct fresh election in the district within 90 days from the date of its judgment. Still on elections matter, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, says it will explore the possibility of using the November 16 governorship election to conduct a fresh election for the Kogi West Senatorial District. INEC National Commissioner in charge of Kogi, Nasarawa and Kwara State, Mohammed Haruna, said this while fielding questions from newsmen on the Court of Appeal judgment nullifying the election of Dino Melaye. He said that since the governorship election was still 34 days away, there was possibility for the election to hold same day. The Court of Appeal in Abuja nullified the election of PDP's Melaye and ordered INEC to conduct fresh election within 90 days of its judgment. The judgment was on the petition filed by Senator Smart Adeyemi, the candidate of the All Progressive Congress in the February 26 election. INEC National Commissioner was in Lokoja for a workshop on fake news organized for media executives, journalists and bloggers by the International Foundation for Electoral Systems in collaboration with INEC. Still in the news. The Senate Committee on Federal Character has summoned some federal agencies over alleged secret recruitment. Some of the agencies have already been written and directed to appear before the panel on Monday. The affected agencies are the Federal Inland Revenue Service, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, National Space Research and Development Agency, and the National Open University. Others are the Federal Civil Service Commission, the University of Abuja Teaching Hospital, the Rural Electrification Agency, and the Nigerian Navy. Chairman of the committee, Danjuma Laa, stated this on Friday during a meeting with other members of the panel. He said the committee will not tolerate imbalance in the ongoing recruitment of some government. Some senators who also spoke at the meeting alleged that the Federal Character Commission was hiding information from the committee. The convener of Revolution Now protest, Omoyele Sowore, and co-defendant Olawale Bakare, charged with treasonable felony, among others, are yet to perfect the bail granted them on October 4 by a federal high court in Abuja. It was learned on Friday that both men are still in the custody of the Department of State Services. They were granted in a ruling last Friday by Justice Ijoma Ojukwu, but attached conditions which his lawyer, Femi Falana, described as stringent. The judge had, while granting them bail, barred them from participating in any form of protest pending the conclusion of their trial and barred them from traveling out of Abuja. Justice Ojukwu ordered that the defendants be remanded in the custody of the Department of State Services, DSS, pending when they are able to meet the bail conditions. Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster and Management, Sadiya Umar Farouk, on Friday denied commenting on rumors of her getting married to President Muhammadu Buhari. She refuted tweets made using her name by a parody account. Reacting, Sadiya Farouk, via her handle at Sadiya_Farouk, issued a disclaimer. In the last 48 hours, social media has been awash with speculation that the minister and the nation's leader were dating and close to taking the alleged affair to the next level. This followed First Lady Aisha Buhari's continued absence from Nigeria. She has been out of the presidential villa since a trip to Saudi Arabia and believed to be in London. The Nigerian presidency has reacted to rumors of an alleged marriage between President Muhammadu Buhari and the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Sadiya Umar Farouk, set to take place on Friday. Special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, in a statement revealed that the report was a deceptive maneuver by those who fabricated the news. Adesina also said that the news was far from the truth and that no such marriage is taking place at the presidential villa on Friday. Still ahead on Plus TV Africa News. U.S. Appeal Court supports House of Reps' request for President Trump's financial reporting, including tax documents. These and more when we return. The 2019 Nobel Peace Prize has been awarded to Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who made peace last year with bitter foe, Eritrea. He was awarded the prize for his efforts to achieve peace and international cooperation. Mr. Abiy's peace deal with Eritrea ended a 20-year military stalemate following their 1998 to 2000 border war. He was named as the winner of the 100th Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo, where he will receive the award in December. The award is worth some 9 million Swedish crowns. Following the announcement, Mr. Abiy said he was humbled and thrilled. "Thank you very much. It is a prize given to Africa, given to Ethiopia, and I can imagine how the rest of Africa's leaders will take it positively to work on the peace-building process on our continent." A cargo plane carrying presidential staff crashed in eastern Congo on Thursday, and all 8 passengers and crew are feared dead, a presidential advisor told media on Friday. The plane, carrying President Felix Tshisekedi's driver, a logistics manager, and some soldiers, was headed from Goma to the capital, Kinshasa, and went off radar on Thursday afternoon, an hour after departing, a statement from the aviation authority said. Debris of the plane has been found, but the passengers are still missing. The advisors had told media earlier on Friday that 8 bodies had been found, but said that information was incorrect. The cause of the accident was not yet clear. Local media showed a crowd of hundreds of Tshisekedi's supporters hitting the streets of Kinshasa after the news broke on Friday morning, fearing that the plane crash had been some kind of failed coup attempt against the Prime Minister. We'll bring you foreign news after this break. A U.S. appeals court on Friday backed the House of Representatives' request for President Donald Trump's financial records, including tax documents, rejecting an appeal by the president to block his accounting firm from handing over any information. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, in a 2-1 decision, affirmed a lower court decision that the House Oversight Committee's subpoena for documents from Mazars LLP accountants was valid. President Trump's lawyers can still appeal the decision before it goes into effect. Will Kosovoy, a personal lawyer for Trump, did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The House panel has said it needed the records in part to determine if Trump, whose business interests have ranged from real estate and golf courses to a reality TV show, complied with laws requiring disclosure of his assets. Assistant Chief Constable Ross Jackson of the British Police said 5 people have been injured after a man lodged at passerbys with a large knife in a shopping centre in northern England on Friday in a brutal attack officers were treating as terrorism. He said 3 people had suffered stab wounds, 2 women, one aged 19 and a man aged in his 50s. The police spokesperson said the injuries were nasty, but none had suffered life-threatening wounds. The man attacked people around him and chased 2 unarmed officers shortly after entering Manchester's Andale shopping centre in the heart of the city. Police said he was overpowered by armed officers, with pictures on social media showing them using a stun gun to detain him. The man, in his 40s, was arrested on suspicion of terrorism, although police said his motivation was not yet clear. Britain has long been at a high alert and is currently at its 2nd highest threat level, meaning an attack is considered highly likely. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said on Twitter he was shocked by the incident in Manchester and his thoughts are with the injured and all those affected. Up next, 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory make IGR of 691.11 billion naira. That is in our business news after this break.
Honey!
Daddy, please, can I go out with you and Mommy tonight?
Sure thing, sweetie. Get your shoes and we go.
Promise?
You have my word?
Daddy!
You know I wouldn't leave without you, my princess.
There's nothing more important than a promise. We are Fidelity. We keep our word.
Within a 6-month period covering January to June this year, the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory FCT generated the sum of 691.11 billion naira as internally generated revenue. The figure is contained in the second quarter IGR report released on Friday by the National Bureau of Statistics. The report explained that the 691.11 billion naira represents an increase of 15.78% when compared to the 596.91 billion naira recorded in the second quarter of 2018. The report noted that 31 states and the FCT recorded growth in IGR, while 5 states recorded a decline in IGR during the period under review. The states that recorded a decline in the IGR are Gombe, Enugu, Bayelsa, Ogun, and Anambra states. The report puts the net FAC allocation in the first quarter of 2019 at 1.2 trillion naira, while the total revenue available to the states, including the FCT, is put at 1.89 trillion naira. Still ahead on Plus TV Africa News is a roundup on entertainment and sports. Nigerian artist Korede Bello has unveiled a non-governmental organization NGO named after him. On Thursday, the singer in his statement disclosed the name of the NGO as Korede Bello Initiative, as he hinted that he has been working on it for some time. He stressed that the NGO is saddled with the overall development and wellness of youth. Ex-BB Niger housemate Tacha has announced T-Bills as her manager. This is coming after T-Bills, who was once Tiwa Savage manager, offered on Instagram to make her the biggest star out of Africa. Earlier today, Tacha deleted every single picture on her Instagram account and a few hours later announced that she has joined T-Bills management company. T-Bills joined many Nigerians to speak up against her disqualification, as they did not feel she deserved to have been disqualified from the show. That's it on entertainment. We'll bring you sports news after this break. Stay with us. The Gabon international has won the English top flight individual accolade following his outstanding form in the month under review. The Gabon international delivered impactful showings for Una Emery's men last month, scoring in all the games he featured. The 30-year-old found the back of the net 5 times to take his goal tally to 7 in the English top flight and helped the Gunners avoid defeat in September. Aubameyang grabbed a brace in the Gunners' 2-2 draw against Watford and was also on the score sheet against Tottenham Hotspur, Manchester United and Aston Villa. The impressive performances ensured he won the award ahead of Algeria international and Manchester City winger Riyad Mahrez. And that's our news roundup of events at this hour. For more news updates, please follow us at Plus TV Africa on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel that is also at Plus TV Africa. We'll be back later with more stories making the headlines, so please join us again. Thank you for watching.
It gets better, ordered another round. It gets better, ordered another round. It gets
I'm sure, as you can imagine, I get many. On a daily basis, I haven't shared this with anyone, but I reckon I get about like 100 people asking for help. A day. That's a fact. I can prove that. You know, so rather than, you know, going through all my messages, my letters, my emails, my DMs, I decided that, you know, I think it's important as a young person to make sure that I'm making a difference. And it would be almost, you know, I could have started a record label and been used those resources to sign artists, but education for me is so powerful. I would not be here, fact, whether or not, you know, anyone can argue that I would not be here if not for my education.
Nowhere, baby, we no tire. And baby, for the line
Seize it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bukky November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Close to 800,000 persons die by suicide every year. Now that's according to statistics from the World Health Organization. More statistics reveal that every 40 seconds, at least one person is likely to die by suicide. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds globally. When Nigerians crossed over to the new year in 2019, it was all prayers to God and excitement. Little did the nation anticipate the reign of multiple suicides that would soon ravage it. January 2nd, 2019 was greeted with the first case of suicide. DJ XG, the popular Lagos DJ, who took his own life allegedly over marital troubles just a few hours after posting a sad suicide note on his Instagram account. Then to Ms. Hikmat Badamosi, a 100-level student of the University of Port Harcourt. And that statistics continued to swell with a first-class student of yet another Nigerian university, the 21-year-old Akachi Chukwuemeka, who took his own life after dropping a suicide note on his Facebook page. This suicide takes me all the way to the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, where his friends and classmates speak about his last moments.
Akachi was dealing with depression long before he came out as an atheist. So, if anything, the depression had left a footprint. And like I said earlier, you can find it reflected in his writing, which is what a lot of people should do.
Akachi's life is kind of complicated, sort of, because I've always known him right from year one as this type of person who is reticent. He's kind of a lonely being, let me put it that way. He usually like being on his own, kind of. So most times, even earlier that day we met, I noticed his mood, kind of. I even asked him basically, Akachi, what's your problem? I've asked him several times, what's your problem? He always tell me, Chris, you won't understand.
I meet Victor, Akachi's closest friend and coursemate. He is very emotional as he speaks with me. He deeply regrets his friend's decision to commit suicide.
I never expected something like this to happen. it was a shock. It's so sad that he had to end his life at the ending while we were just about graduating, but I don't still understand it. And concerning the circumstances of his suicide, I personally know the struggles he went through.
From my findings, the pain of suicide is only passed on to the family and loved ones of the suicide victim, as Ifani, Akachi's friend, tells me.
The Monday he died, the Monday morning, I saw him last. We greeted and we talked. The news I got around 8 a.m. was that he was in the hospital. So I had to rush to the medical center. I saw him in a really bad situation. Getting to around 8 p.m. in the night, I got the news that he passed on. The major issue there is the reputation, should I say bad reputation in code that he left behind, because, for instance, someone would just walk up to you that he's a close friend. Why do you let him do it? And someone might almost think that, okay, since you guys are close, you must know what happened to him, or you participated in making him commit suicide. So the stigma and then the loneliness that your friend is gone.
Just a few kilometers away from the campus, I meet this clergyman who is using his church to reach out to more depressed students. He complains to me that most Nigerian universities do not have the structure to help suicidal students.
Talking about suicide among students, I have come to see that there are 3 factors implicated. Some cases are absolutely mental. The student loses mental coordination and he wants to kill himself. Others are emotional. The student is battling with failure, battling with heartbreak in relationship, battling with one thing or the other, sometimes even parental pressure. And he breaks down emotionally, he's depressed, and he wants to kill himself. But others are absolutely demonic manipulations. The case of Akachi that happened last week, I believe, is one glaring example of demonic manipulation. We live in a very harsh situation in the country now. There is poverty, there is joblessness, and it's not even good enough reason for someone to kill himself. It's not. That is why even those of them who go to school should understand that school is not just about passing exam. School is about being enlightened. So you're able to understand situations of life and how to bring them under your control. That's what education should give to anybody. And besides this intellectual enlightenment, there should be emotional education. Maybe the university should think about introducing a course like emotional intelligence as one of the general courses.
He came all the way to this secluded building to take some bottles of Sniper. As at this time last Monday, Akachi was actually battling for his life, a battle that he lost. Akachi's case is one case too many of increasing suicide attempts across Nigeria. The Department of English and Literary Studies of the University of Nigeria. This used to be the classroom of Akachi Chukwemeka, who had actually commenced, according to information that I gathered. Well, this used to be one of his favorite sports in this class, where he shared beautiful moments with classmates and friends.
Akachi was a good student, very studious, and
a music minister allegedly from the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Michael Orowoshaye in Abuja. Now, this leads me to the streets of Lagos, where I ask the question, why would someone want to take their life?
I just say of the jump.
A few